Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a very quick but special League of Legends video. Today we are going to be talking about what essentially is the new meta or will become the new meta very shortly in League of Legends. Now I'm sure some of you have already seen some videos about this or posts on Reddit or just the official League of Legends forums, but I want to make a video talking about this as well and also kind of talk a bit more about it too. So let's get right down into it. Essentially the new meta is going to be playing AP AD carries or just essentially AP champions down in the bot lane in the AD carry position or role. The most notable one that's actually very successful at the very moment to be played in down in the bot lane instead of an actual true AD carry is going to be none other than Ziggs. Now I'll go over as to why this is becoming popular and why it's successful and why you just essentially want to replace the AD carry in general. But before I do that, I want to give big credits or shoutouts to Shifter. He's a professional player, I'm sure most of you have already heard his name, but if I am not mistaken, I believe he is the one that actually popularized playing this kind of AD carry Ziggs sort of AP style thing in the bot lane because he spammed it in Challenger, won a lot of games, was very successful with it, and essentially made this very popular. Even taking a look at his OPGG, you can see in just the past 3 days, you can see how many Ziggs games he has played, and every single game you're seeing right here is him playing down in the bot lane. And to make things a little bit more spicy, it seems like even according to Shifter, that Ziggs may not be the only champion that can be successful down in the bot lane that is traditionally a mage played in the mid lane. Because he's considering to play and try out Victor down in the AD carry role as well, because he will also do quite well. He will fit the role that you want the person to fit or the champion to fit, and he will be more or less just as successful, if not maybe even more. So now that we got all that out of the way, let's start talking more about this whole Ziggs in the bot lane as an AP carry champion and just overall AP mages bringing their way down in the bot lane and just more or less replacing AD carries. So now the biggest reason is, well, why do you want an AD carry on your team, right? AD carries tend to have a very poor laning phase for the most part, and they're actually quite weak for about the first half of the game. They're all about that late game power, the auto attack damage that they can consistently provide, and of course to be able to destroy turrets because, well, when you look at a standard team composition, let's say you have Darius top, let's say you have a Hecarim in the jungle, let's say you maybe have someone like Ahri in the mid lane, you have Thresh support, and then you have maybe like Caitlyn ADC. Well, out of all those champions, Caitlyn is by far the best champion when it comes to sieging down towers consistently and effectively. That is also what AD carries are just very good for. But what if you were to essentially bring someone in that can do all of that in the late game for the most part, but also have a very strong and powerful early laning phase and mid game as well, and still scale very well to late game and still be able to destroy towers? Well, in comes Ziggs. I mean, Ziggs is what? He's very strong in the early game, he's got solid base numbers, he scales really well into the late game with all the AP that you'll be getting since you still do build him the way you would normally build him in the mid lane. He's got some CC in his kit to obviously help maybe, synergize with your support and go in for the kills, but the biggest thing is the fact that most AP carries tend to not be the best when it comes to destroying towers. And if you're replacing an AD carry that's kind of meant to be able to just siege down towers effectively, well, you're gonna have a bit of an issue unless you bring someone in that can also do that well. Well, luckily for you, Ziggs, with his W, with his passive, and also with the Lich Bane, I promise you, once you're fed, once you're in the late game, you will pretty much be 3-shotting towers. And this is one of the biggest reasons as to why Ziggs is so successful down in the bot lane as this so-called AP AD carry, and this is also why potentially Victor may also be brought in down to the bot lane because he's got the wave clear just like Ziggs, he's got long range poke, he's got CC, he's got a solid early game, probably one of the best laning phases of most mages because of his Q trade potential, but he can also build a Lich Bane, be successful with it, and also annihilate towers. So there you have it, a bunch of reasons as to why this whole Ziggs down in the bot lane thing is successful. Again, just very strong early game, scales really well, brings in wave clear, brings in CC, brings in AoE, brings in the tower killing potential, probably even better than ADC can, unless they're insanely ahead, and even then I would still argue Ziggs is better. But of course, with anything in life and with anything in League of Legends, there's always the good, but there always has to be the bad. And there are definitely some downsides as to playing Ziggs down in the bot lane as an AD, AP carry, or whatever you want to call it. For instance, obviously you're going to be lacking some consistent auto attack damage in the late game unless you have some kind of AD carry chilling in the mid lane or maybe in the top lane, or you have something like, I don't know, Quinn jungle. Well, I mean, the late game, even though you're still pretty damn strong and you're still very effective, there is a decent chance that you're just gonna have simply too much magic damage on your team. But luckily for you, having a champion that does AD or physical damage in the jungle or the top lane, and even sometimes in the mid lane like with Zed or something, it's not necessarily uncommon. So you can still definitely fill in that kind of gap or that niche, but at the same time, it also comes down to having that ranged AD carry type damage output, which is just really effective in the late game. So in certain scenarios, it definitely might kind of, suck not to have that AD carry damage consistently coming out in the late game, but Ziggs is just insanely strong strong. He doesn't have to wait until late game to be effective and to start really outputting the damage, since a lot of the time games tend to just snowball out of control nowadays and the AD carries just don't really have the time to get to that point. But now let's take a look at how you want to build this Ziggs, what kind of runes, masteries, items, and all that stuff you want to do. So without further ado, let's jump into that next. So I'm essentially going to be copy pasting exactly what Shifter does and what items and stuff he runs whenever he plays Ziggs, because well, he's the one that popularized this, so I would instantly assume that he probably knows what's best at the very moment. So starting off with masteries first, you want to go 12-18-0, opting in for that Thunderlords because it gives you that huge lane pressure, which is the kind of thing that you really want since you're bringing in Ziggs to dominate the lane and to scale really well and not have to kind of have this whole passive laning phase where you're just farming up and you're not really able to be super effective or useful until maybe 20 or 30 minutes in. Following this, we also have the runes. Now for the runes, he actually has a very interesting page that kind of does make sense. So he's got the magic penetration reds and the flat AP queens, that's all pretty normal, but he has 6 of the yellow runes as just flat armor, while the rest of the yellow, 3 of them, is flat mana regeneration. And then to the blues, you also have enough CDR per level to get you 10% at level 18, so in other words 6 of the 9, and the other 3 are also flat mana regeneration. And you might be wondering, why exactly is he doing this? Why does he have these kind of random mana regen runes? Well, think about it, you're down in the bot lane. Chances are you're probably not going to be getting blue unless somehow maybe your jungler is just that nice or something like that, or your mid laner is that nice. You can't expect the blue, so you need some help with the mana regeneration. So you have part of this, and you have also partly the items that you get to help you not run out of mana and sustain it effectively. Because following this, we also have the items that you want to get. Now there's 7 of them because it kind of just depends on what you're facing, but the ones you want to get without question is first Morel and Almacon, your boots of choice, usually Sork boots, and your Luden's Echo. Morello's will help you get that mana sustain up, especially once you get the first part of it being the Lost Chapter, which easily will just completely nullify any mana problems you may have. But after that, Void Staff is usually going to be a without question common item. The Rabadons is probably going to be something you'll get very often as well, and then it'll either come down to, do you need the Zhonya's to help yourself maybe from all the dive that they have, maybe too much AD damage on the enemy team, or can you feel a little bit more greedy and instead right after the Luden's Echo go for the Lichbane, because if you're able to snowball and get the Lichbane instead and go off, trust me, you will not only just annihilate everyone's face, but the towers will simply melt. You will, I promise you, be shocked at just how fast you can take these turrets. Again, don't forget, Ziggs' W, the satchel, reduces the tower's HP by effectively 25%. And last but not least, you also have the abilities that you want to level up, a little bit different than what I expected to see. Usually I would level Q first, then E, then W in terms of max, but it seems like Shifter thinks that it's better to instead max your Q first, then your W, and then your E. So he only uses the E just for that kind of CC on the ground, but he uses the W a lot more frequently to reposition people properly where he wants them to be, so he thinks that that's more useful. It doesn't really matter too much in my opinion which one you max second, but if you want to follow exactly what Shifter is doing, then go ahead and max W second. But either way guys, I mean, that is about it for this video. I wanted to talk about this whole new meta thing popping up in League of Legends all of a sudden, how AP carries are just slowly transitioning down to the bot lane to fill the gap that AD carries are currently bringing into the meta, being just pretty damn useless for the first half of the game, and there's just too many people that by the time the AD carry is useful, well, chances are someone in the top lane, maybe the jungler or even the mid laner is maybe snowballed and they're just diving on you and killing you in one shot, and you're still useless even though that's the point where you should be useful. So Ziggs brings in the kind of missing component of the AD carries at the very moment. Very strong early game, scales really well, can still destroy towers, has a lot of poke, has wave clear, has AoE damage, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see other AP carry type champions down in the bot lane as well, maybe someone like Victor. But either way, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it useful or whatever, then let me know by hitting that like button. Make sure to go follow Shifter on his YouTube or Twitter or Twitch or whatever to give him some love and support because he is the one that found this out. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed the video, hope to see you